Hello my friends and welcome once more to this Red Gaming Tech video. Myself and Marza, as always, I'm here with the latest news from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours as of the 7th of February. So we're going to begin today's video with some things from Intel, the first of which is regarding a AMD motherboard. And no, I didn't just misspeak. We actually have some pretty big news as Intel has finally certified an AMD Thunderbolt motherboard. So, in case you weren't already aware, vendors were not allowed to produce Thunderbolt controller silicon, but that is now freely allowed. Intel, of course, announced with Thunderbolt 4, they were basically opening up the technology. So, there are quite a few AMD motherboards out there with Thunderbolt 3, but none of them have actually been certified by Intel until today. And it's an ASRock board that now finally has the honour of being the first to be an AMD board that is Intel certified, obviously with Thunderbolt on there. It is a X570 Phantom Gaming ITX/TB3. It's a mini ITX motherboard. So, just to give this a bit of background as to why this is actually a pretty big deal, it took 3 gens of Ryzen for Thunderbolt to even reach AMD boards, and it took basically an entire year for one of those products to earn Intel certification. And as I said, Intel previously didn't allow vendors to produce Thunderbolt compatible silicon, but Intel basically wanted more people to adopt the technology, which is fair. And they got rid of this in 2019, handed over Thunderbolt 3 specs over to the USB implementers forums, and they are, I think, making an effort to just make it a bit more open. So this is pretty big news, as I said, and I'm sure we will see more motherboards becoming officially certified by Intel as we move forward. But we're going to move forward now to our next Intel topic, which is actually regarding Tiger Lake. So, what do we have with Tiger Lake? Well, we actually have a pretty damn impressive benchmark having leaked on the Sysoft Sandra database and helpfully posted by wccftech.com. So thank you very much to them, and you can find their article linked in the description below this video. So what do we basically see? Well, we're mostly worried about the iGPU here inside the CPU itself, because that is where most of the impressiveness of this lies. Now, just to give a bit of background before I get into the specs, the Tiger Lake mobility processor that we see here is essentially DG1 in mobility form factor, so Intel's Xe, essentially. But what about the specs? Well, we see a 1.2 GHz clock speed for the iGPU and 96 execution units. So this basically means that we're going to be seeing 1.84 teraflops of graphics power. So let's put that in some sort of context, shall we? This would put the graphics power, again the graphics power, on par with the original PS4. So where did this leak come from, I hear you ask? Well, if you look at the listing itself, which you have been enjoying on screen, you'll see the driver is release internal. So this means that basically this leak is from Intel's lab itself. Whoops. But what about the CPU side, I hear you ask? This is a CPU after all, just with an iGPU tucked on there as well. It has a base clock of 3.1 GHz, so the CPU side is not exactly a slouch either. So we're going to have to wait and see, of course, to see how well this does in real worlds, like how it's going to do running games as part of an actual system that's, available to the public and that sort of thing. But I think this is going to be definitely a head turner in the mobility sphere. How much of a head turner? We'll have to wait and see. We're going to move on to our final Intel topic of today, which is regarding the CC150. Basically, on the Chinese forum Zunlan, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, there was a user by the name of DDAA117 who submitted a post about an Intel processor which was labelled CC150. According to them, they found this on Taobao for selling for roughly $310 US. And there's even a few images to go alongside it. So as you can plainly see in the image, the CC150 has SRFBT inscribed on it, as well as of course the clock speed of 3.5 GHz. So we also see L909E392, which basically means this came from Intel's Malaysian factory in the 9th week of last year. So, according to what we can see here, according to the images provided by AA117, the CC150 is identical to that of the 9th generation Coffee Lake parts. So 9900K, 9600K, etc, etc. So, it's listed as running, again, at 3.5 GHz, but does not have any turbo. And as well as that, no integrated graphics. So, we see also a power draw of 151 watts, which is actually pretty significantly lower than that of the 9900K, which is probably due to the fact that, well, there's no turbo on this particular part. So essentially this is a chip that is apparently some sort of 9th generation offshoot or what have you. The naming is a little odd, it's just badged as Intel processor, where normally we'd see Intel Core, so that's where things start to get a little strange, as I've said. And then obviously we see the lack of turbo and no integrated GPU either. But the information from AA117 didn't stop there. We actually have a benchmark from them on a ASRock Z390 Extreme 4 motherboard and 16 gigs of RAM at 2666. So we have CPU Z benchmark and Cinebench R15. So, in terms of the Cinebench results, we can see the single thread performance is worth about 151 points, whereas multi-thread is worth 1,510. So as for the CPU Z benchmark, you can also see that on screen. So the blue benchmark is so the blue bar, is what we're looking at here. The reference is the one below it. So single thread, once again, we can see 413.3, and then on the multi-core we see 4249.5. So, that's quite the heavy Intel load we've lifted our backs there. But we're going to move over now to some PS5 news. First of all, some comments from Ubisoft's CEO. So obviously we already know that the PS5 is going to feature backwards compatibility in some form. We don't know exactly how it's going to work. Is it just going to be the PS4 games? You know, how is this actually going to function? Sony have said that they're still working out the details of this, which is fair, they want to get it right. However, the CEO of Ubisoft, Yves Guillemot, made some very interesting comments during a recent financial call. And he basically said that the next-gen systems will feature backwards compatibility with almost all of the previous console's games. But let me not put words in his mouth, should I say. We have a direct quote here provided thanks to the article by PlayStationLifestyle.net, which will be linked in the description below this video. And they've said, quote, "Those consoles will be running almost all the back catalogue of the previous consoles. It will be something new in the industry. It will help the old generations to continue to be big consoles on the market for years to come." So he said those consoles. So I take that to mean both the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, but obviously it's tough to know exactly what he was inferring here. But I do think it's interesting that he said almost all the back catalogue of the previous consoles. So while we should not take this as read, like it's confirmed or anything like that, it seems pretty strong indication that both the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 are going to be running all of the generations. So how would that actually work on Sony's side? Well, the PS5 will most likely run PS4 games using the backwards compatibility mode on the PS5 GPU. We've discussed this before. As for the PS1 and PS2, that's pretty easily achievable with software emulation. Now the PS3 is of course where the real trouble begins, the real question mark is raised, because obviously the PS3 was infamously difficult to develop for, and it has a very different architecture in comparison to that of the PS4 Pro, PS4, and undoubtedly the PS5 as well. Will it be software based? Will it be hardware based? Will it be both? I think, to be honest, I'm not going to comment too much on that. That will require a bit more digging, but it's definitely an interesting comment. It can be interpreted in a few ways. Of course, we should wait for official word from Sony. There we go. Words are hard. Apologies, it's been a long day. But still, I'm interested to see how this turns out. We're going to end things on a less than positive note, however, with a patent from Sony that has surfaced. So this is all thanks to a tweet from John Doyle, a game industry editor over at Twitch Player Mag. and you can find his tweet linked in the description below this video. But basically what he's found is a patent for, quote, direct-to-consumer microtransaction storefront targeted by AI. Now obviously you can see the patent for yourself on screen, but you'll also find a link to the full patent in the description below this video. So basically what this patent shows is pretty damn insidious, to be honest. So you can basically see 80% of players like you defeated the boss using Resource X, and then the console will literally say to you, hey, why don't you try purchasing Resource X? So if they actually implement this, this is pretty damn insidious, as I've already said, but that is the big question, the big statement I suppose you should say, if this is implemented. I have said more times than I can count, and everyone ever who talks about patents has said more times than they can count, that just because a patent exists does not mean we'll ever see it being implemented as a feature or product that is used by real-world customers. Is it good that Sony are patenting things like this? Is it good that they're leaving themselves an option to implement this sort of technology? Obviously not. But if it never ends up actually being in a real-world product, I think I'm going to keep my pitchfork in the cupboard, but I will be on standby for sure, because this is awful. This is pretty in line with that EA microtransaction patent we saw doing the rounds some time ago. So, yes, this isn't great, but I'm just hoping with all my body and soul that this is not actually implemented. This is like the worst nightmare of microtransactions come true. Actually proactively selling you an item based on an issue you're having with the game, and just using AI and targeting. It's just, no, please just don't, is what I'm going to say about this. Just don't. Hopefully they won't, but I have to wait and see on this one. Anywho, that is me done for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, your support is highly appreciated. Do remember to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It does help out a great deal, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.